Sí, sí, ahora, ahora. ¿Qué está pasando? Hello, 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 hello. If you are using OBS, make sure that the audio controller actually detects the audio input. If not, then the problem is the audio input directly to OBS, to your computer. OBS. OBS is fine. Computer is fine. Let me see. Let me know if you are already getting my... ¿Ya? Okay. Thank you. Already. Okay, guys, welcome everybody to our last theoretical class. I think it is. Yes. I didn't believe it was going to come to an end so soon, but let's get ready to rumble. Today's class is basically a continuation from past classes. And the thing is that it's pretty easy to know what's going to come in terms of economic development here in Mexico and in the whole world. There are a lot of conspiracy theories already sounding, and well, we're gonna have a big range of explanations for what is going on right now with the pandemic. Some people say it's not true. Some people say it was to stagnate the economy and then boost it for the benefit of the powerful. Well, we'll see. We'll see how it ends. And well, last time we were seeing the difference between recession and depression. And we were seeing that the two main factors or the two main differences between one and the other is the length and the magnitude. The length meaning number of months that it lasts, because remember, we talked about last time that economy has a cycle, and be it a good president, be it a bad president, the economy is always going to be like a sine or cosine function. It's going to have its ups and downs, ups and downs. If you graph the statistical data from every month within a year or 2 years, you're gonna find, and connect the dots, you're gonna find like an electrocardiogram or like an earthquake graph. Goes up and down like your heartbeat. Now, when we do a function out of this economic cycle and economic fluctuations, we end up with a roller coaster in that it has ups and downs. That the economy has its ups and downs, it's totally normal and natural. Be it the best president that there has ever been, or be it a bad president. They have nothing to do with the economic cycle, okay? But the fact that it lasts more than it's supposed to be has to do a lot with the management and the administration of the natural and the financial resources of a nation, okay? And obviously the magnitude. You, for no reason, want to let a crisis become a recession when it could be prevented, and same thing applies from a recession going or growing into a depression, okay? So if at any chance you have a question, just feel free to ask. All right, so we have an escalating graph here. We know that we have a trough. You know, like we draw the cycle, it's like a roller coaster, it's like a swing, and we have a trough. The trough is like the lowest part of the curve, and we can see many symptoms there. We have a deceleration. Maybe we're growing at a 4%, and then next year we're growing at a 3%, and then the following year we grow at a 2%. That means a deceleration. We're still growing. We have this percentage number still positive, but it has decelerated, okay? Remember that we calculate the growth rate of the GDP by having the actual GDP minus the past GDP, let's say 2020 GDP minus the 2019 GDP, and you divide it by the actual GDP and you multiply it by the 100%, you know, or divided by 100, and you have this little number. It can be a 2.6 or it can be a 4.2 growth. Supposedly, economy is always growing. It must always grow. The point or the trick for the people that are in power is to preserve or to maintain that growth. It doesn't matter that it grows slowly, but that it keeps on growing. And the duty of any government is to make this expansion period that is cyclical that lasts the more, so that more people and more people can benefit from it. And when there's a trough, that it lasts and impacts the population the least. Okay, so what do we have here? The fall of the GDP. I made a mistake there. That's GDL is Guadalajara. GDP, okay, the gross domestic product. We have a fall, a very, very visual and evident fall. Then we escalate to a recession. Okay, now recessions are also cyclical. You cannot stop a recession from coming. They're gonna come anyways. But the thing is to, to make it not last more than it's supposed to be. Okay, so when does a trough become a recession? We already mentioned that last time. When it lasts more than 6 months. Whenever a crisis, this fall, this deceleration symptoms start lasting for more than 6 months, then we are in a recession. And this is pretty bad because that's when investors, that's when companies, producers, and also consumers, we start to get in the signals from the environment and we start changing our habits. And you know, when you remember your supply and demand curve, you remember what happens when consumers change their lifestyles or they change their habits, they change their preferences because they have less salaries or they have less purchasing power parity, then it impacts directly to the curve. The whole curve moves, and that means that we have an overproduction, and that just triggers the moving of all these factors that changes everything. And so that's why we never want, as a government, to let a trough become a recession. You don't want it to last more than 2 trimesters. And then the final escalation is that the recession becomes a depression. Now, depressions are more rare. Okay? Right now in the United States, since Trump has assumed the power, we're talking about the Great Recession. Some economists that are very against Trump, because you know that in the United States we have 2 main political parties. We have the Republicans and the Democrats. And there's a lot of literature, academic literature, that states that Democrat administrations have done so much better than Republican administrations. Trump is a Republican right now. Barack Obama was a Democrat. Bush was a Republican. Clinton was a Democrat, and so on and so forth. Okay, so there are many studies that may show that Democrat parties and Democrat policies are more beneficial for the United States economy. But also I have read a lot of other literature as abundant as the first one that states that Republican policies are better. Now, well, who knows which is the truth, but the thing is that they both have their moments to be more, to rescue the economy the most. Usually in Democratic administrations, we have a lot of immigration policies and we have a lot of welfare policies, and in Republican one we have an expense that grows for armament and national defense, and we have all these policies, and both of them in their own ways are beneficial for the economy in a global term, in a more generalized term. So we cannot say that one is good and the other one is evil or backwards, but oh well. Now, we're talking about this Great Depression. Barack Obama has gone to the registry of history as one of the best presidents of the United States of America, although, and that's when you see that economy is cyclical and you cannot blame it all and everything and every single detail on one sole man. He has gone to history, down to history, as one of the best presidents, being that he lived one of the biggest recessions in the United States in the last 50 years. And now, well, Donald Trump gets a government that is immersed in a depression, in a recession, and we're talking about the Great Recession. Now, if this keeps on going, then maybe we can get to a depression. It's the last escalation. What I want you to see is that it goes up, okay? A trough is very normal, it's cyclical. It becomes a recession when it lasts more than 6 months, and we don't want it. It's very negative. However, you cannot prevent it. Okay? It's going to happen anyways, but you have to have a very diverse range of policies on the behalf of the government so that you can diminish the negative impact on the population. And then what you do not want whatsoever on earth is to become a depression. Depressions are very, very rare because their magnitudes and the lengths are very out of the chart. So we're talking about a depression when the crisis, the trough, the recession, the deceleration, the fall of the GDP has gone on for over 3 years. And also when it reaches a minus 10%. When it reaches a minus 10%, you're talking about cases very serious, such as Venezuela, such as Germany during the 20s, such as the Great Depression in the United States during the years of the 30s after the First World War, and so on and so forth. Okay, so what I wanted you to see here in a more visual way is that it's an escalation. It is an escalation. We go from being a trough to be a recession and then becomes a recession. All right, over 3 years, that is very bad for the economy, and obviously the magnitude is very significant. When it reaches a minus 10%, we're talking about an urgent measure that needs to be taken. Okay, we shouldn't get to those levels. Now, some symptoms of a recession, I kind of simplify them because last time we got the information from a web page, and I wanted to simplify these a little bit more. Okay, what can we find in a recession? Well, the rise of unemployment. We can measure the capacity of employment by in two ways. You can measure unemployment, that is, you get your population that is active in a productive manner. You get people from 18 years old. That's why population pyramids are very useful. You get your 18 years old and over up to 65 years old, and you calculate that. Now, let's pretend that we know, and I'm just gonna blubber some numbers out of the blue. Knowing that Mexico has a 128 million population, well, let's say 60 million people of those 120 belong to this category of population that are economically productive. So we're talking about 18 years old to 65 years old, and let's say there are like 60 million people. I think there are like 40 million people, but let's say it's like 60 million people. Now, that 60 million people becomes your 100% in terms of labor force. Okay, labor force. That's all your people that potentially could be active and must be active, but they're not. So you take away the students, obviously, you take away the people that are doing some other activity, and you are left with the people that should be working but are not working. You get that number and you do the rule of 3, you get the percentage. What percentage does that number represent? And you get the index for unemployment. Or you can do backwards. You can calculate the people that should be employed and are employed. Okay. Now remember, from these big range of people, we have taken out the people that are only studying and that do not need to work. All right. They're economically dependent still. Now we have a symptom of recession being the rise of unemployment, or we can put it in other terms, incapacity to generate new jobs. Now, in the Keynesian model, is a very logical explanation for all of these. If somebody is not working, he is not receiving a salary, he has no earnings. Therefore, that person cannot spend money. Their spending capacity goes down for that household. That person stops buying, stops consuming such whatever good or service, you name it. And then the company that is supposed to be selling those goods and services that are not being sold anymore, they're not being paid for, perceives that the demand lowers, and so they lower production, which leads them to fire people or to not hire people, which leaves more people without a job, in unemployment, and so on and so forth. And it's like a vicious circle of these economic debacle. Then another one is a decrease of consumption. Okay, a decrease of consumption, either due to inflation or higher interest rates. The same thing. If I am not consuming, then we can have an explanation in the prices. People that were supposed to be selling 100 pieces a day, let's imagine I'm a producer and I sell 100 empanadas per day. And I'm selling 100 empanadas, and each empanada, since I'm selling all of them, I'm sold out at the end of the day. In normal conditions, I sell every empanada at 10 pesos. Okay, it's a very little empanada. And so I'm sold out. But then with the crisis, with the economic debacle, with the recession, people are not buying empanadas anymore. So instead of selling 100 empanadas per day, I'm selling only 50 empanadas per day. And so me as a provider, as a producer, I'm thinking, how can I get more money out of the same produce? I start producing less. Maybe I used to hire a little helper, and now I have to tell him to go home because 50 empanadas I can do them by myself, and I don't need to spend that money, which, by the way, is not entering anymore to my pockets because I'm not selling that much. And so I have just caused one firing case, and now I have only 50 pieces to sell. And now I decide to raise my price because I'm not making as much money as before, so I have to recover somehow, in some manner. So instead of selling them at 10 pesos, I'm selling it at 12. Not because sugar or the inputs are more costful, just because I need to make kind of like the same money for less units that I'm getting. Okay, so this goes on and goes on and goes on. So that's why one of the reasons, because people decrease consumption of any good and service, it may be inflation or higher interest rates. When you have a higher interest rate, is that the stores, the big stores and the credit system, they perceive that people are not paying anymore. That's the next one too, is very related to that one, the rise of overdue credit. People do not perceive money, then they are not paying their debts. The people that are making the loans, they perceive that there's not a paying capacity, and so I raise my interest. I make it harder for people to acquire some amount of money, because I have to recover. Remember, one of the things that we said in the first class of this semester, that things are scarce. It's not like we have an infinite number, an unlimited number of goods that we can buy. They're limited. Resources are limited. And another thing that we said is that everybody acts on their own interests, looking for their own good, their own behalf. And you cannot blame them, okay? I'm just not gonna buy oranges that I don't need, and I can be saving up money just to help somebody sell their stuff. Maybe there's like some lady that does that, but in normal terms and in a recession crisis, in a recession time, people usually first look after themselves and then the other person. And that's logical, and that's normal, and that's foreseeable. That's one of the conduct that can be preventable in terms of economics, okay? And that gives us a decrease of the GDP, okay? Obviously, people are not selling, people are not buying, people are being fired, so we're not producing as much as before, and that is translated into a decrease of the GDP. And finally, the increase of inventories. People or providers, producers, manufacturers, agriculturists, people that are providing, they're on the side of the supply curve. These people have all this produce that is not sold anymore, and so they have to keep it somewhere. Some of it goes to waste, but a lot of products do not go to waste, and they have to be stored. And so your inventories are like humongous now, and now you have to allocate some resources for keeping those products. And obviously lower your production, which means more firing people. And as you can see, all these factors are totally interrelated, all right? So now we have here, okay, this great example. We said that recessions are very rare in history. We're not gonna find them like every 6 years. Recessions are very common. Not as common as little crises or little troughs, but they're cyclical. We cannot say they're periodical. We must say they're cyclical. We know that the cycle keeps on repeating itself, but we cannot say, no economist, not even the latest Nobel Prize winner, can tell you exactly how many months a depression is going to last, or a recession and another recession are going to have in between. Nobody can say a recession happens every 32 months. Nobody can say that. We just know that after your climax comes a depression. Okay, it comes like a not a depression as here, but like a downslope. Okay, we know that. We know that. And you may be asking, we talked about this last time, you may be asking, why can't governments just foresee and take all the measures so that it doesn't hit the population as hard as when these economic tragedies happen? Well, it's like an earthquake. You cannot foresee an earthquake with so many minutes ahead, because you don't know if we're just only in a trough, and when it has become a recession is when they start taking very serious measures to not become a depression. Okay, well, this is Black Thursday, October 29th, 1929, and this complies with all the requirements to be considered a depression. First of all, the length is from 1929 to 1933, so 29, 30, 31, 32, 33. It lasts 4 years, that's more than 3 years. Some people, you're gonna find other criteria. Some people say that it can last 2 years, and that's okay. That can be considered a depression. Well, most of the economists right now, they say it's a 3-year period of time. And well, we have 2 interpretations of this Great Depression. Okay, first, our Keynesian guys, you know, like the followers of Keynes, John Maynard Keynes, he lived through the Great Depression, and all his studies and all his books, the ones that you presented in the first partial, were actually taken as a base for the research and the data, the Great Depression of the United States of America. So he's saying there's under consumption, okay, people stop consuming as low, like below the equilibrium point. Remember your supply and demand curve. And there's an overinvestment or an overproduction. Okay, people are coming from a climax. They're coming from things being very good and constructing buildings and doing a lot of things and expanding governments. If you have a restaurant, you're opening new branches, and all of a sudden people just stop showing up, you know. And kind of like what happened this year. I know of some people that opened their businesses this year, their restaurants, their stores, their makeup, whatever thingy, their suppliers, the dentists' offices, and they didn't foresee that this crisis was going to hit them so hard. Everybody believed that this was only going to last for like 15 days or even 3 weeks or maybe at the most 1 month, but people did not believe that this was going to happen. Okay, so people actually opened businesses this year in January to 2020, and well, it was very tragical. Okay, so overinvestment means that we are spending more money than we can actually get. Remember that all businesses and all big projects have to be based on credit. It's not like I have all the money I save up for like 10 years and after 10 years I start doing my business. The reality is that I start saving and I will get some money in cash, in real money for my investment, but then the rest I just put it in credit. I just put it to the plastic thingy, okay? And well, guess what? They're not gonna get their money, soon because I'm not making any money. Okay, so that causes general panic, as we are seeing right now in our economy. And then on the other side, we have Friedman. Okay, we have Friedman from the University of Chicago, remember, and he and his little friends are going to blame it on the fall of money supply. That is, people, in reality, I think about this, maybe you see the differences in a more keen way, but I see that both of them are saying the same thing. It's only for the pleasure of just contradicting each other. But I think that because there's underconsumption, then there's a fall of money supply. That means people are saving up. People are very afraid due to the general panic. They're very afraid that just the inflation is gonna go crazy and that the exchange rate is just going to plummet down. And they're just like getting into these general neuroses. And so there's a fall of money supply. People are just getting the money out of the market. There's no fluency of cash. All right, and that produces deflation. Deflation is the exact antonym of inflation. That is, inflation is when money devaluates. When we put more, remember your supply and demand curve, when you put more supply of whatever thing, strawberries, remember in winter you have abundant strawberries, then the price of the strawberry goes down. Okay, if we talk about money, if I have some amount of pesos or dollars, and all of a sudden I put much more money into the fluency, the circulant money, then my value, the value of the money goes down. That means that my prices go up because the value is objective, although the money quantity is subjective. All right, so instead of buying this trip to Europe at $1,000, my ticket, I'm gonna have to, since my money has devaluated, maybe is $1,500. All right, so that's an inflation. Prices inflate. Now, the exact opposite to inflation is deflation. That's everything on the contrary. Okay. You get money out of the market, you reduce your circulant cash, and that gives you a deflation. That means that prices go down. They go down, and you say, oh, that's perfect, I can get more for my money. However, when the curve totally shifts, remember that when I'm moving along the curve, that doesn't move my equilibrium point, that doesn't move anything. Okay, it's only the quantity demanded and the quantity supplied. However, when this lasts for an amount of period that is significant, then my whole curve starts shifting and it's moving my equilibrium point. Okay, now when I have less circulant money, my prices go up. But why? Because my values are going up. So if I lend money, if I ask for a loan last year, December 2019, okay, and I asked for $1,000 as a loan for whatever, okay, this year, if there is a deflation, then I still owe $1,000, but what I can buy for $1,000 is much more. So my purchasing power parity has increased, and I put it in quotes because it hasn't, because my money now is worth so much more, because it can buy so much more. It's the exact opposite effect as inflation. And so I actually owe more money. My debt has multiplied. Okay, this happens all the time with our public debt. That's why we're so screwed, okay? So that gives you an increase of real debts. That's what Friedman says. And he doesn't ponder all these measures that had been taken in the Democrat administrations. That's why one of them favors Republicans, the other one favors Democrats, and they put these guys like on the top of the moon. And well, none of them are totally right, none of them are totally bums. Sometimes both type of policies, the national defense spending, the welfare state, the whatever, sometimes they're necessary and they boost the economy in a very different way. Now remember that when we're talking about maybe selling brownies in a microeconomic level, I can have results in like at the end of the day. If I am a big business, I can have results and data and statistical information like after a week or at the end of the month. And when we're talking at macroeconomic levels, and I'm talking about the statistics of a country, a nation, well, we're behind. We don't know exactly how the economy is right now because we need to wait months to see the indicators, all right? Whatever indicator that goes out like in real time is not reliable, all right? So that's basically that. If you have any questions at any moment, please do ask, okay? Let's keep on going. Okay, so we have that, we've had 3 main recessions in Mexico from 1950 till the present. Why 1950? Because remember that one of the presidents that lived one of the economic boosts, major boosts in the history in the 20th century is Adolfo López Mateos. And that period of time was so big and it was so significant that it was called the Mexican miracle. Okay, we built, we constructed, we just spent a lot of money, we borrow a lot of money, we were at the top of our game, okay, with Adolfo López Mateos. Now, the one mistake that he did is that he started borrowing money from abroad, from the United Nations, from blah, blah, blah. But it was a world in expansion, not only in Mexico, but we were caught in this nice wave of the world that everybody was growing, everybody was building, everybody was making these new technological advances in all the manufacturing processes, and we have all these fashion things and technological development that boosted the economy, okay, in whatever area that you want to name, okay. But from then on, we have 3 major recessions that were very, very harsh here in Mexico. The first is in 1982 with José López Portillo. That was the worst on my belief because I think that could not have, it didn't have to go so bad, and he was to blame for that, okay? I mean, recessions, you know, maybe it's not totally on the responsibility of the leader of the nation, but I mean, you have something to do with it. Once you're already there, you can do many things. You can do many things to attenuate the impact on your population, and this guy did not, okay? And then the 1995, in terms of economic indicators, this is the worst one. Why is the worst one, and why I personally do not consider the worst one? The worst one for me is 1982, due to this guy that I actually don't like, personally. Rest in peace. But in 1995, this guy, Ernesto Zedillo Ponce, came after Carlos Salinas de Gortari. One of the biggest boosts after López Mateos is Carlos Salinas de Gortari. Well, due to the TLC, due to many factors, and all these new economic policies that he brings into the country. And well, since we have such high increase of all economic indicators, well, guess what? The next recession had to be very, like, you know, like crushing onto the, like, sinking ciphers. So, well, this guy has proved to be, he has been proven to be one of the best economists in the recent years, and also presidents. So maybe, I don't know, I'm more like forgivable with him. And finally, Felipe Calderón Hinojosa, the 2009 recession that was also, well, after Vicente Fox Quesada, and kind of like the same thing with Ernesto Zedillo. As you can see, I'm very apolitical, and well, that's what I think. You can think whatever you want, but that's what I believe. And here are some numbers that I I think are important. Okay, here we have some numbers. These are the recessions that we have suffered in Mexico during the last 40 years. Now, as you can see, the red bar is the months that we were in an economic contraction. The yellow bar are the months that we are in expansion. So, well, if we were in a soccer match and the yellow bars were the goals that we scored and the red bars would be the goals that were against us, then all the matches were won. Now, obviously that's not the logic in terms of economics, because we want the expansion to last more and we want the red bar to last less. Also, another thing that we have to take into account is the percentage. We don't want a negative percentage. So even though the length and the intensity is very, it depends on which sexennial we're talking about. Well, the one that has been worse was in 2009 with Felipe Calderón. Okay, those are some of the figures that it shows. And each bar is a sexennial. Okay, here in 1983, that recession, we have José López Portillo in 1986. Another little recession, because remember, I'm going to repeat myself, recessions are also, they're not desirable, of course, but they are not preventable. I mean, they're gonna come. You can do things to restrain them from coming, to make them last a little bit less, or to push them away a little, but you cannot forbid them to come. And you want a good sexennial being your balance, having that white bar, the yellow bar very, very long, and the recession part to be very small. All right. The other one is 1995, that's Cedillo, 2001, Vicente Fox Quesada, and 2009, Felipe Calderón, Hinojosa. Okay, there's another graph here. This corresponds to United States. How long do recessions last in United States? Well, their secret is that they have managed to make it last 11 months average. Okay, that's not bad. It's as bad to hit the economy, but not as bad to crash it. Maybe that's what we want, okay? They put a lot of, even be it Republican or be it Democrat, they put a lot of emphasis in generating new jobs. That's one of the things that they do well, that they put a lot of work on generating new jobs and new jobs and new jobs. Their policies are very centered on that indicator. And obviously, at the long run, it hits the GDP, okay? And well, finally, guys, the oblique lessons for being in a depression or in a recession, okay? What do we want to know when we are in a recession? Now, first of all, we have to know, at all costs, whatever it is, if you sell your soul to Satan, whatever it is that it takes, okay? Well, no, don't sell your soul to Satan, please. I didn't say that, okay? Don't let recession become a depression. Never, ever, ever. Never, ever, ever. Okay? The government must cushion, attenuate all negative impacts and accelerate recuperation. You want it to go very fast and boost and foster and promote all these other indicators, all right? You think of indicators and that's exactly what you gotta do, okay? You think so, those are your objective, the indicators. Boost them up in a very authentic way. I mean, don't do any tricks there. Okay, number 2, pay close attention to this equilibrium. Okay, whenever the supply demand, all these indicators are falling on like above or below the equilibrium point, you don't want that. You do not want that. In the Mexican case, do not rely on tax collection. Why? Because it just screws people up. Okay, if you make up new taxes, as you can see, that's not the solution. That's getting money that is easy money, but you are getting it, you're stealing it from people. One of the authors, I remember in George Mason University, he used to tell us that taxation is a theft. It's a theft. It's the new way of bribery, of robbery. Because it's true. I mean, if the government has their normal taxes and then they are running short of money and they just come up with whatever capricious tax that is new to the population, then that's robbery. That's robbery because it's not a tax that is not legitimate. It's not legitimate, and well, we're getting robbed. Okay? Because ultimately it impacts on the purchasing power parity. If in Mexico we earn 1,000 pesos, let's say, a week, and well, let's say 100, just to make numbers round, per day. I earn 100 pesos per day, and I have to pay for every 100 pesos 30 pesos to the IRS. Well, guess what? Then I am only left with 70. So in reality, my salary is not 100, it's 70. And that takes away purchasing power parity from me. I consume less, therefore people sell less, therefore they produce less because the demand is less. And whatever has the word less is not good for the economy. Okay? I buy less, they sell less, they hire less, and everybody just has a lesser style of life, a quality of life. Number 3, central banks must guarantee cash fluency. And pay very close attention to what I'm going to say. Lower interest rates. I know, that's like leaving things for fate. I mean, if you know people are not going to be able to pay you back, then how are you going to lend them money? Or you're going to facilitate people to borrow money? I know banks are not going to do that, but that they should. They should, because that's a way for, in the long run, not having people going bankrupted. And you are helping as a big bank to, well, promote development on the people that are your users. Another thing is print a decent amount of additional money. If you know people are going into panic, into a general panic, and they're going to get away cash from the market, from the floating money, then we'll print some decent extra additional amount of money. Even if we devaluate a little, you need to keep money running, because people are getting out of the market, people are getting their money from the banks, people are just absorbing a lot of things, and you are not going to have enough fluency to keep the exchange rates, etc., etc. So sometimes devaluating or sometimes printing more money to preserve the equilibrium in the money fluency market, it's positive, because the other effect is going to be worse in the long run. That's another huge mistake that our presidents and secretaries of economy do, that they only think about the immediate effects, and they forget that the long run effects are the ones that last and the ones that are meaningful. Okay, and number 4, rescue policies with prudent welfare programs. You cannot just give out your country, just such as Venezuela, which you studied in the last partial line. You did that little project that I assigned. Okay, this Maduro, this Chavez start giving out money based on the petroleum revenues. But oh, guess what? It's cyclical. Economy is cyclical. So when these petroleum guys from Arabia start lowering their prices because there is an overproduction of oil, then guess what? Your earnings are cut in half. Then you are promising these welfare programs and helping all these people, and you are not, you don't have the money anymore. And so what do? You start borrowing money to preserve your popularity, and well, guess what? They have right now, as of right now, the highest inflation rate in history of the world, the galaxy, okay, the solar system. Especially in terms of basic labor rights. Now in Mexico, we're facing a big crisis. We need to keep being, well, they want to keep it a welfare state, but we don't have any more money. Everything is going to pay the debt. So where are we getting things from? From taxation that lessens the people's purchasing power parity, which leads them to buy less, etc., etc. So it's like a vicious circle that keeps on going and going and going. Okay. Social Security is going very, very bad here in Mexico, as you have already studied. What's the answer? To null it, like in United States, that everybody is supposed to buy an insurance? Well, that's not the answer. That's a very unpopular measure to take if you are the president of the Mexican state. It's very difficult. It's not so easy. I know, it's not so easy. And now, well, since I consider that the worst of the worst crisis was precisely the one of López Portillo, well, we're gonna see it. Okay, let me see what I'm doing here. Oh, that's me. Is that me? Yes, that's me. Okay, and I am going to show you this. Yeah, and supposedly, where am I? Who am I? I just watched The Miserables. It's awesome. Okay, so let's listen. This guy, Jesus Silva Herzog, and with that we finish. He was the Secretary of Economy during the 1982 crisis, and he is relating of the things that happened. Okay, so let's see it.
En el año 82 siguen las salidas de capitales, se provoca una devaluación del peso el 17 de febrero de 1982 y aquella famosa frase del presidente de la República de que defenderé el peso como perro, que no solamente no ayuda a una mayor estabilidad en el mercado cambiario, sino que al contrario provoca una reacción que conduce a una mayor salida de capitales. En esos momentos, marzo de 82, entro yo como secretario de Hacienda. En medio de lo que me permití transmitir al presidente como una de las crisis más severas de la historia de México. Todavía se pensaba que íbamos a seguir creciendo al 6% en ese año de 1982. Yo hice una declaración pública que vaticiné que íbamos a crecer a 0%.
Por eso estábamos creciendo al 6%.
Por poco me corren.
Es así como,
a las pocas semanas de haber entrado. Mayo, junio, julio, todos los días salía dinero. A veces 50 millones de dólares, a veces 200 millones de dólares. Y teníamos que hacer circo, maroma y teatro para obtener los recursos que necesitábamos para pagar el próximo lunes los préstamos que le habían concedido a México distintos bancos internacionales. Yo en aquellos meses, empezando en mayo, empecé a ir a Washington de manera secreta. Tenía ya armado citas con el secretario del Tesoro, con el presidente del Banco Mundial, con el director gerente del Fondo Monetario Internacional, para decirles que veíamos que se podía presentar un problema muy, muy serio y que necesitábamos mantenerlos informados y eventualmente contar con el apoyo de los organismos internacionales y del gobierno de los Estados Unidos. En agosto de 82 tuvimos que devaluar en los primeros días de agosto. Luego tomamos una medida de convertir los MEX dólares, que eran depósitos en dólares o en pesos, pero denominados en dólares. Tomamos una decisión muy difícil, que todavía hay mucha gente que me lo reclama. Tuvimos que devaluar otra vez a finales de agosto. Y el 20 de agosto de 1982 en Nueva York, el secretario de Hacienda de México, que era yo, le declara a la comunidad financiera internacional que ya no tenemos dinero. Días posteriores, 1 de septiembre, se anuncia la nacionalización de la banca y el establecimiento de un control integral de cambios en México. Volvimos a entrar en otro periodo de enfrentamiento brutal con uno de los sectores más importantes del sector privado mexicano, que son los banqueros. En los bancos va el depósito de usted, el de mi amigo, el de mi pariente, de manera que a través de los bancos se afecta toda la actividad económica, comercial y financiera de un país. Fueron momentos particularmente difíciles. Durante el 1 de septiembre de 1982 al 1 de diciembre de 1982, en esos últimos 3 meses del presidente López Portillo, México padeció la salida de capitales más importante de la historia. Todo mundo, la secretaria, el chofer, el mensajero, si tenía 100 pesos los quería convertir en dólares. Fueron momentos particularmente difíciles que cuando llega el presidente de la Madrid a asumir el poder el 1 de diciembre de 1982, se encuentra frente a una circunstancia, yo creo que una de las más difíciles que cualquier presidente en México en los últimos años ha tenido, el día 1 de su toma de su posesión.
Efectivamente. Muy bien, pues chicos, creo que ya sería todo. No... Ay, ahí estoy. Voy a ponerles una guía de estudio, voy a subirles todas las presentaciones, todos los lives para que puedan repasar. Por supuesto que voy a ser muy sencilla. En esta ocasión voy a revisar el cuestionario 20 veces para que no se me pasen los errores como la otra vez. Y bueno, pues no sé si tengan alguna pregunta, comentario que deseen aclarar en este momento. Si no, pues hasta aquí sería todo el contenido de la materia que alcanzamos a ver. Me hubiera gustado, la verdad, ver un poquito más, pero bueno, creo que me quedo tranquila de que se van con un conocimiento muy general, muy amplio y con las herramientas pues de datos, de estadísticas, aunque sea que luego ya en el futuro les pueden servir para buscar ya una respuesta un poco más específica. Y bueno, pues como siempre ha sido un gustazo tenerlos. Me hubiera encantado, yo no pensé que íbamos a terminar así el semestre, pero pues nada, al mal tiempo darle buena cara. Yo casi siento que los estoy viendo en sus banquitos y en sus sillitas. Y pues nada, o sea, les quiero desear lo mejor. Digo, no me quiero despedir porque sé que nos vamos a volver a ver. Sé que de alguna manera vamos a podernos despedir frente a frente, cara a cara, y no de esta manera pues tan distante o tan fría, pero que con el cariño que reciben de mi parte, pues saben que cuentan conmigo para lo que sea. A partir de, pues, del examen final o de que ya tengan su calificación, pues dejo de ser su maestra y sí quiero que cuenten conmigo como una amiga. Ya saben todos mis contactos, ¿no? En general así todos mis datos. Y cualquier cosa que necesiten, que quieran aclarar, de teoría, de práctica, de cuestiones personales, de lo que sea, de fe, de no fe, de así, pues ya saben que pueden contar conmigo. Les quiero decir que ha sido un gustazo tenerlos, conocerlos este último año. Son personas maravillosas, así cada uno es un tesoro increíble y ha sido un honor para mí poder ser su maestra. Entonces, pues, buena suerte y have a good life.